Well, hello everybody. I hope everybody will understand my English. I'll try not to speak too fast. Everybody has introduced me so much now that I don't need to say any more about myself, I think. GTB, as has been mentioned, is actually a private travel company, but it is the largest travel company in Japan. So we ourselves in London and our other offices around Europe and our incoming department in Tokyo have many years' experience in receiving guests from Europe and worldwide inbound into Japan. So I have two presentations today. The first one now is more about Japan as a destination in general. So afterwards, after the break, we'll talk in perhaps more technical way for travel agency business. But just to introduce really the main points about Japan, because I'm sure we have some experts and we have some people who may not know so much about the country. So there we are, there's Japan, as you know, just the other side of China. I'd like to cover these points as we go through the presentation today, and I understand you already have a paper copy of this. One thing to notice about Japan is it's very long and thin. Its distance between the north and the south is very wide, therefore there is a great variety in the climate and the situation of the very north and very south of the country. Another thing to notice that a lot of people don't realise quite so much is that it's a very long way from some of the other countries in Southeast Asia. We'll talk later on about how you can combine Japan with other Far Eastern destinations, but one thing to notice is that it's actually, if you're going to go from Japan to Hong Kong, for example, or Japan to Malaysia or Vietnam, it is actually a very long flight, so you need to bear that in mind. Getting there from here, I'm not a great expert in flights from Romania, but I'm sure we have many experts in our midst. I believe that Turkish Airlines via Istanbul is actually a very good way to go. And there are other airlines offering very regular services to Japan, but they involve sort of flying backwards, if you like, back into other European cities like Vienna if you're flying on Austrian Airlines or Lufthansa via Munich. But I don't know how the airfares are actually working from here, but as far as physical trip goes, Turkish Airlines via Istanbul seems the most likely and the most convenient way to go. So, places to go in Tokyo, in Japan. Tokyo, of course, the major city, a massive conurbation covering many, many square miles. It's a bit like London in the sense that it has various districts within the city which have their own particular character, such as the area of Shinjuku, for example, which is within Tokyo but which has its own particular atmosphere and situation. And most people, of course, are going to fly into Tokyo. That's the main gateway into the country. The next place to visit on a trip to Japan would be Kyoto, a former capital of the country, and a place which is full of historic buildings, historic monuments. These monuments in Japan do tend to take the form of buildings, and a lot of them are made of wood, and a lot of them have actually been reconstructed as time goes on, but they all conserve the traditional architecture, and they have a very traditional flavour and are usually set within very beautiful gardens as well. After that, everybody, or most people, would know Mount Fuji, a perfect volcano shape. It is actually a volcano, as most people would know. And it's really symbolic of the country. It's not that far from Tokyo. It can be done in a day excursion from Tokyo, although most people would prefer to stay overnight in the beautiful area around the Mount Fuji Hakone National Park. And the mountain being as high and as noticeable as it is, you get great views of it from the whole park. And then if people have time and the possibility to go on down to Hiroshima and Miyajima, this again is a very important area for tourism. Hiroshima, partly because of the Peace Park, which commemorates the atomic bomb, and Miyajima is not far away, just very close by a rail connection and by ferry. It's actually an island which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Itsukushima Shrine is actually just the other side of this gate. These gates are called tori. They are the symbolic entrance of a Shinto shrine. And the shrine itself is just over the water there. It's actually built on stilts, so that when the tide is up, it actually seems to be floating on the water. So those are 4 main places to go. When to go? People often ask, when's the best time to go to Japan? That's a very common question that we get asked in Britain. And basically the answer is spring and autumn. The seasons in Japan are very distinct one from another. They have 4 well-defined seasons. Winter, very snowy. Summer, very hot and humid, as far as we British are concerned anyway. And so spring, cherry blossom time, very fresh, agreeable weather. Autumn, we have beautiful autumn colours in the forests, especially in that Mount Fuji Hakone National Park that I mentioned. So the middle part of the country there, we've got spring and autumn as being the main times to go. I mentioned here Mount Fuji, July and August, and that picture that we had of Mount Fuji just now showed the top of the mountain, the summit, covered with snow, which is the case for practically the whole year. But in July and August, the weather is sufficiently warm that the snow actually melts, and that's when you can actually climb the mountain. They don't let you climb the mountain all the rest of the year, but in July and August, you can go up the mountain. The typical thing to do is to go up to the 5th station, which is about halfway up, then to climb in the evening, have a rest, and then to actually carry on climbing in the sort of 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, carry on, and you actually get to the top in time to see the sunrise, which is something that Japanese people themselves like to do, and which is really the best opportunity for climbing Mount Fuji. JTB has an excursion which does just that during the months of July and August. But as I say, you can't do that when it's thick snow up on the top, and even in the summer, the difference in temperature between the ground level and the top is quite dramatic, and you have to make sure you've got proper equipment and clothing. The other places that we got on here, Hokkaido, the northern island of Hokkaido. As you see, it's so far north of the rest, and again, it's very snowy, especially as it's very close to, as you saw, Japan is in fact quite close to Russia. The way that the winds work, you get a wind going across from Siberia, coming across the Sea of Japan, and picking up moisture along the way, and dumping it as snow in Hokkaido and in the Japan Alps, which is the sort of central backbone of mountains in there. Which means that Japan has actually hosted the Winter Olympics before. We'll actually get onto that in a minute. But so we have Hokkaido, which is it's quite undeveloped, very great countryside, lovely for walking, and as I say, skiing is perhaps something that you Romanians are spoiled for ski opportunities, because you have mountains and other European destinations not far away. For us British, we don't have any skiing at all. I mean, they say you can ski in Scotland, but actually it's not really what you would call proper skiing. So we do try to persuade people who've been to the USA, who've been to the Alps, who've been to other ski destinations, why don't you try Japan? You can combine a bit of skiing with some sightseeing or visiting the country as a whole. And in fact, the Australians, who also have no skiing in their country, have been there before us, which is good because it means you can hire boots in the right size instead of the small Japanese sizes. And up in the ski resorts and the ski leisure areas, English is quite well spoken and quite well signposted around, so that makes things easier. Going to the other extreme, we have the islands of Okinawa, which can't really fit on this map, so it's a bit meaningless. They're sort of stuck here in the corner, but actually they're down about there, where my foot was, just there, just about there. They're a long way from the mainland of Japan, archipelago of small islands with coral structure and with very clear seas and with semi-tropical climate. So you really have quite a contrast from north to south. There we are, the four seasons that we were talking about before. The cherry blossom in spring. In summer we've got some fireworks here because there are, I mean, some people say you can always find a festival going on in Japan somewhere, but in summer there are quite a few festivals. In autumn you have the autumn colours, and in winter a very thick covering of snow in most of the northern part of the country. The main city in the northern island of Hokkaido is Sapporo, which hosts a snow festival every year, where they produce vast sculptures of ice and snow. You can see this whole thing is constructed of snow, and there's the main street, the main exhibition area for the snow festival. You just walk up and down and see all the snow sculptures. So that's an interesting point in the winter. Tokyo Marathon is mainly run by Japanese runners, but which does try to make it easy for foreign runners to participate as well. And we do have quite a few people participating from the UK. This is something which might interest marathon runners particularly,